We have yapped about these rookie running backs for months from a dynasty lens. Right now, we're going to talk about them, redraft, one season sample to help you guys, season-long teams, best ball teams. What can we expect out of the top rookie running backs in the 2025 class? We're going to do the same thing for wide receivers. Over the next couple of weeks, we've planned out our entire content schedule for the months of July and August. We got a ton of heat coming. And a lot of this stuff for the next couple of weeks is going to center around rookies and second-year players and third-year players, because that is where the profit is made in season-long fantasy football. Danny, let's go in order. 2025 rookie running backs, underdog ADP, how they're being drafted, kind of talk through each one of these guys. Are we in? Are we out? What do we expect? What's the ceiling? What's the floor? Kind of median range of outcomes for all these players. It starts and ends with the 6th overall pick in the NFL draft, Ashton Jeanty. Running back 5 off the board, 11.6 ADP. So a guy that you do have to spend a first round pick on. You guys can see some season long projections over on Underdog Fantasy there as well. Projected for just shy of 1,100 rushing yards, 8.5 rushing touchdowns. What are your thoughts on Jeanty? Are you in on Jeanty? And I guess the easiest gauge of that is, where do you have him ranked relative to his 11.6 ADP? I'm at 10, so I guess I'm in on Jeanty.
Yeah, and I would say I'm definitely in on Jeanty overall. In terms of where his ADP is, I do technically have him one spot after ADP, if you would count him this. 11.6 over on Underdog. He's currently my 12th ranked player. The difference being I just have, for example, Devon Achane above him, who goes behind him over on Underdog. Guys like Malik Neighbors over him, Nico Collins over him, etc. there. But I do have him in a tier right now. McCaffrey heading that tier at number 8. Jeanty being the floor of that tier at number 12 right now.
Yeah, so I mean, the case is pretty simple for Jeanty. Top 6 capital, good quarterback in Geno Smith, better coaching with Pete Carroll coming in, Chip Kelly calling the offense, 14th highest graded run blocking offensive line as well. So this is a pretty decent scheme, a pretty decent offensive line that you're working with, and some nice pieces around him. And I've kind of made the case too that, like, what they do as blockers, like Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer and Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh as receivers, like, this is going to be an offense that centers around the young running back who they drafted 6th overall. And when you look at Chip Kelly's rushing offenses, 2013 Eagles, 2014 Eagles, 2015 Eagles, you're talking about the 1st ranked rushing offense, 7th ranked rushing offense, 11th ranked rushing offense, all top 10 in overall rushing attempts over that course of time as well. And when they had a bell cow, Shady McCoy in 2013, Shady McCoy in 2014, he went for like 380 and 350 respective touches. So this is a dude, Chip Kelly, who's used to using a workhorse running back who can, call an efficient rushing offense. And the projections indicate that he's absolutely going to get fed with 1,074 rushing yards as a baseline for a rookie running back. And he's probably worth this 1-2 turn ADP as well.
Well, the two comparables we have in the prospect model right now, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, if you look at running backs that were selected in this range, again, similar prospect profiles under a 90 grade. That's excluding guys like Bijan, McCaffrey, Barkley, those type of guys a little bit higher of a prospect caliber. I'm assuming for you, it was solely based on the level of competition as a whole.
Yeah, Jeanty narrowly misses being a generational prospect, and it is because he played for Boise State, and they made the college football playoffs. Yeah. So obviously they weren't like playing a bootlicker schedule. They had some actual teams that they played against, but still, he wasn't a Power 5 running back. It's he had some stat padded production as a receiver as a sophomore too.
Well, out of those two comparables, regardless, I mean, very good company to be in. Obviously, Fournette got hurt in his rookie season, but you're looking at the fact that in the 8 games he played, 6 touchdowns from scrimmage, 159 opportunities. You guarantee me 20 opportunities per game for Ashton Jeanty. We're getting a league-winning caliber player. And should I even mention the Ezekiel Elliott RB2 overall season 2016, a guy who scored, 16 total touchdowns, 362 opportunities in 15 games. You're telling me that's the type of ceiling that Jeanty can get to? I absolutely assume that to be the case. Again, you mentioned Chip Kelly, very, very strong ground attack, improving offensive line, Geno Smith added to the fold. Relatively, and I think this is an underrated factor, there's a much better management group as a whole. I really trust the player development that's in store with this new look Raiders team going forward. And on top of that, I mean, we mentioned throughout the dynasty cycle, is Ashton Jeanty a top 2, top 3, top 4 level player in the class? Like, that was the real life conversation. Now, obviously, running back, to get selected this high at that position, you need to be that type of generational special talent. The NFL assumed him to be, and realistically, a 33-year-old Raheem Mostert is not stopping him from touching the ball 20-plus touches a game.
Yeah, that's the big time factor between the top running back in this class and the guy that we're about to talk about next is who's in the backfield, who's the incumbent starter, and the Raiders started a combination of Alexander Madison and Zamir White and Amir Abdullah last year.
He had a cool mirror selfie though.
We have some useless running backs behind Ashton Jeanty on the depth chart. Like,
dude,
this is a dude that is going to get all of the work.
all you have to do though is look at that profile pic, that selfie that Zamir White took in front of the mirror to get some hype on him. I mean, it was not like not the sole reason.
7th round last year, doesn't that?
That's what I mean.
5 years ago that happened.
Did people take him in the 7th round because they saw a gym mirror selfie and be like, "Yo, this guy kind of looks yoked"?
Yeah, I mean, Zeus White, I absolutely cannot run the football, but he does look like Zeus himself. So let's talk about Omarion Hampton, because this could be a more interesting topic of conversation. Obviously, Jeanty, we're both in on him at his price. Hampton's a little bit more of a split conversation for you and I. He's going off the board 45th.6 overall ADP. I have him ranked right around 50, so I'm like a little hairs behind ADP on him. And he's running back 15. I think he's my running back 17. So I'm a little bit behind on ADP. Hampton's season-long Pickem projection set right now, 849 rushing yards and a half, 6.5 rushing touchdowns. The question that you have for Omarion Hampton is what I just talked about. How much does Najee Harris take up in terms of the overall backfield? I think Najee Harris, one of the better pass protecting running backs in the NFL, so he's probably going to work it on third down a little bit. He was also a top 5 running back in yards per route run. He also has a massive reception season under his belt. So not only from a carry goal line workload, but also a third down workload, Harris could end up being a pest. The question is, how many weeks is he a pest for? Is Najee bad? Is he average? Is he good? We really don't know, because he's kind of played around with those lines throughout his career. The one thing we do know about Najee Harris is that he's reliable. He doesn't miss games. He can get you 3 yards when you need 3 yards, and coaches seem to like that. So is that going to factor into Hampton's workload a lot, a little, or not at all?
And that's the difference fundamentally in what we believe in. Again, you have him here, 52nd, you said? I have him at 38, so I have him over around above where you do. In terms of where the expert consensus is on the site, we see it kind of widespread, 37, 43, 40, 44. So out of all the experts, like, you are definitely the lowest comparatively, and that's just of the scare that you believe Najee Harris to be comparatively. To me, I don't think Najee Harris is a scare. I think when you look at the fact they invest the 22nd overall pick, we have this strong offensive line, I believe to be an elite quarterback with Justin Herbert, obviously a proven run-heavy approach. We know what Greg Roman wants to do. We know what Jim Harbaugh wants to do historically. I mean, you look at the 49ers, you look at Michigan, you look at Stanford. It's pretty tried and true in his blood that Jim Harbaugh wants to run the shit out of the football. And I really do think this is a situation we could see 30 rushing attempts per game from the running back position for this LA Chargers team. I think there's a possibility Omarion Hampton can get that RB1 majority workload, even if it's only a 60 to 65% share immediately. I do think he has that in store, because quite frankly, I view Najee Harris as a replacement level talent. And the Pickem line is already kind of indicative of the fact that they do expect Omarion Hampton to get the workload sooner rather than later. You mentioned the totals for Jeanty. And Jeanty, I don't think anybody has any concerns. He will be the RB1 from day one. 1,074.5, 8.5 rushing touchdowns over on Underdog, versus with Omarion Hampton, still very respectable. Even the fact that Najee Harris is there, 849.5 and 6.5 is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, no, I think they're putting a decent amount of respect on him as far as the projection that they have for him. I guess my thing is that I would probably take the higher on Najee Harris's rushing yards as opposed to taking any higher or lowers on Omarion Hampton's. I would probably just play it through Harris and say, I think he's going to score more than 4.5 rushing touchdowns because he's big. Again, you and I might think that Najee Harris is just a guy. And I think he is just a guy, but he's just a reliable guy that coaches seem to like. And I do tend to think that Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh are going to make him more a part of our lives than any one of us want him to be.
All I'm going to add to this, and then I can talk about some of the comps, for example, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, similar situations, Carlos Hyde and Marlon Mack respectively, actually filling in ahead of them in their rookie seasons right off the bat. I mean, I just got to point to the fact that how many goal line carries did Najee Harris get last year versus how many touchdowns did he score? He scored his least touchdowns as a pro, and he was one of the highest running backs in terms of goal line equity. I just don't see it being the case. If he gets 2 or 3 goal line attempts, doesn't punch in a touchdown, I think Omarion Hampton, if he shows he can be efficient in that regard right away, there won't be a hurdle for him taking those duties.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a skill to command red zone volume, and he was 11th in the NFL in red zone touches. So even if he was inefficient, yes, he was inefficient last year, but he also had 8, 10, and 10 the 3 years before that. So it's not like he's a terrible zero in the red zone. And I do think the coaches are going to be like, oh, he's big, he's reliable, he's not going to fumble on the goal line or whatever. They're going to throw him out there and snipe Omarion Hampton a decent amount.
All I'm going to say is if I'm looking at an elite situation with what I believe to be a top-end talent, legitimate running back, if I close my eyes in a one-week setting, I could view as a top 3 to 5 running back in my rankings. I'm not letting Najee Harris impact my decision on drafting him. I'm sorry. We've seen what Najee Harris is capable of. Even in the biggest of workloads, he's a replacement-level running back. If Omarion Hampton's the talent I believe him to be, that's not stopping him from drafting him in the 4th. Realistically.
No. Of course, yeah. And to me, the floor is, it's a split backfield all year. The median is like, okay, we see one of these like Joe Mixon rookie seasons, Bucky Irving, what happened to him last year. Some of these guys that started out the season weak and then post, rookie bump that they get after their bye, they start to take over the backfield. I just don't anticipate Najee ever disappearing in this backfield. Yeah. Even if Hampton takes over the backfield, I do think he'll be a modest factor, and that would impact his ceiling. That's kind of what I see from a median. But obviously, the ceiling is this dude's an animal.
Jonathan Taylor.
He's Jonathan Taylor back half of his rookie season. He catches even more passes than Jonathan Taylor can do. And, this is one of those better rushing offenses in the league. And you got a guy that's, scoring a touchdown every game once he takes over the backfield.
Well, let me ask you, would you put young Jonathan Taylor as a current Los Angeles Charger? Where would he be in your rankings this year?
So philosophically, that would be the difference, you and I, is that I do not think Omarion Hampton is on the same level as Jonathan Taylor of a prospect. And I do think one of the major concerns I have for why I think Najee Harris will remain a pest is fumbles, drops, missing gaps. I think that's something that Hampton's going to struggle with early on in his career. Because
so did JT.
Of course,
as a young back.
JT struggled with it as well. It's the type of back that I saw on film with Omarion Hampton was a guy that was probably going to take 10 weeks of his rookie season to really get acclimated to the NFL. This is not a dynasty take, obviously. I love Omarion Hampton in dynasty. He's an absolute animal. I just do think that in his rookie season, from a redraft, season-long, best ball perspective, you might have to eat a couple, unstartable weeks early on in the year.
Guess how many points per game Jonathan Taylor averaged week 11 on in his rookie year? Because it's funny you said until week 10.
Yeah, no, I pretty much memorized when he was good, which was week 11 on. I think he was like a 20 point per game running back after that point.
Oh, almost 25 points per game.
Yeah, no, he was a monster, man. If Hampton has Jonathan Taylor's rookie season, I would count that as very lucky, and he's an excellent pick, especially in best ball in the 4th round, because if that production is back weighted, where all the money is in Best Ball Mania 6, that's where you're going to want it. It's just in redraft, are you going to be comfortable taking a guy that you can't really start first 5, 6, 7 games of the season in the 4th round?
And that is the difference between us ultimately at the end of the day. Like, I'm comfortable if I have to sit on him on my bench and I can start guys like, the Rico Dowdles of last year, the Brian Robinsons of this year. Like, those guys, like rounds 9 to 13, I can kind of plug in right. Like, if I have to throw Tank Bigsby into my lineup in like week 2, for example, I have no problem doing that, knowing the fact that when I do need that production and I can look to a guy that, like I said, close my eyes, he could be a top 3 to 5 running back in my rankings week 11, 12 on, I'm willing to take that plunge in round 4, realistically, even absorbing the fact that there is risk in the immediate workload.
Yeah, no, he's an interesting discussion. Where do you guys come down on Hampton? Let us know. Do you think, is Hampton going to be a smash this year? Is he going to be a guy that's Najee Harris is a pest and we're all hating ourselves? Week 3 fantasy football reaction. Me and Danny are just yapping about how Najee's getting 20 touches a game. That would not shock me, but it also wouldn't shock me if Hampton absolutely hammers fantasy football drafters like me for maybe not getting huge exposure to him. Let's talk about the next group of running backs. And when pre-draft, when we were talking about these guys as talents, this guy was not in this conversation. He was more RB 7 to 10 for a lot of people pre-draft. RJ Harvey is the 3rd rookie running back off the board. He is RB 20. 62.6 overall ADP. This is down from where he was before. He was actually like an early 50s pick before the Denver Broncos signed J.K. Dobbins. Before they signed J.K. Dobbins, we heard a lot of quotes coming out of camp like, this is, his backfield to win and all this kind of stuff. Now, since that's happened, they signed J.K. Dobbins in free agency. We're hearing Sean Payton say it's too early to project the depth chart. One beat reporter today actually speculated that J.K. Dobbins might start for the Denver Broncos. And we've heard there's a situational role available for RJ Harvey. J.K. Dobbins might get a long, good look at that 3rd down role ahead of week 1. So,
why do you think that's the case? Knowing specifically the strengths of J.K. Dobbins and perhaps the weakness of RJ Harvey, why do you think it's coming out that maybe RJ Harvey might lose third down work. RJ Harvey can't pass protect. You know who can? J.K. Dobbins. When you have a young quarterback there, why would you play the inexperienced pass blocker out there on third downs? Like, realistically, people are way over projecting what the immediate workload will be for Harvey. When I'm looking at these other running backs, like, yeah, okay, Najee Harris is there with the LA. Like, nobody's talking enough about Dobbins in Denver.
No, I would argue that Dobbins is significantly more backfield competition than Najee Harris is, even though I just kind of waxed poetic how Najee Harris isn't that bad. This backfield, the way that we're handling this one is like he is going, what did I say, 63 overall ADP. Where do I have RJ Harvey ranked right now? I have him 80th overall, and I haven't really changed my stance on him too much, even after Dobbins signed there. Like, I think I had him in the 70s before that. I think he's overvalued. I think he was a solid prospect, and the workload was going to be good. And I'm sure a lot of you guys in dynasty drafts drafted him, 1-2 turn because you assumed he was going to start right away for the Denver Broncos. But J.K. Dobbins, to me, of the two backs, I'm just going to take the one who's cheaper. Do I think RJ Harvey's a better value now than he was before? Yes, but I'm not going to take him very much anyways because he goes right around like the next guy that we're going to talk about, TreVeyon Henderson. Like, I'm not going to take him over TreVeyon Henderson when Henderson has an easier path to touches and Henderson was a better prospect and it's a comparable offense.
And that's my main thing. We're going to talk about these next few guys in a second, but I do have TreVeyon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins considerably higher. I also have Kaleb Johnson higher. It's funny because you look at where I have Harvey relative to ADP. It's not like I'm much lower than ADP. Like, I have him at 64 overall. I think if you wanted to take him in the 60s, that's perfectly reasonable because he does have upside in what I expect to be a very, very good run scheme. But the fact that you have to take him over better prospects in ideal situations for better workloads right off the bat makes no sense to me.
Yeah, no, I just can't get behind 62 overall ADP when I think that it's a pretty 50-50 shot who starts for this team. And not just like at the beginning of the season. Like, I think Dobbins is a good enough running back that he could fend off.
I think Harvey will start down the stretch. Maybe. However, I think like people are saying, oh yeah, was Harvey going to be like a 70% workload guy? I don't see that. Can I see it being like, oh, Harvey's the 1A and Dobbins the 1B? Sure. And I think a 1A for Peyton could be worth a pick in the 60s. But why would I do that when, like I said, TreVeyon Henderson, we'll talk about in a second. What if he's the number 2 receiving threat for frickin' Drake May this year?
As a prospect, RJ Harvey comparable to guys that were third round picks, like point blank simple. Like, you see the prospect caliber that there. And Tuten, who we'll talk about at like pretty much near the end of this video in terms of ADP, he went in the 4th round and he's a comparable prospect to RJ Harvey, who went in the 2nd round. Trey Benson went in the 3rd round, comparable prospect to RJ Harvey, despite him getting that bump of 2nd round draft capital. Rashad White, Devon Achane, David Montgomery, these guys are all like relatively good running backs, but they were 3rd round picks and RJ Harvey went in the 2nd round. Like, it proves to say that he was a little bit overdrafted. And even though he's an older prospect and he should, in theory, be a little bit more pro ready as a result of that, I do think J.K. Dobbins is a very capable running back who legitimately was a top 20 running back in fantasy last year before he got hurt.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that aspect. I will say, though, there is proof in the metrics that after his injury, the efficiency did go down. However, that could very well just be the injury really affected him. What if he is fully healthy? On top of that, we're not really arguing. I guess you are more than I am. I think RJ Harvey will have the majority workload down the stretch, but like you said with Omarion Hampton, I don't think it's going to be like a 70-75% workload share. I do think it's going to be relatively like a 55-45, maybe a 60-40 if RJ Harvey's lucky, but I just don't see him ever usurping J.K. Dobbins as a pass blocker, really.
Yeah, no, I don't see it as very likely at all. And again, the RB 18 in fantasy points, like, to give you an idea, let me look at who the RB 19 in fantasy points per game was last year, because they were one spot behind J.K. Dobbins in terms of overall fantasy production. And let me ask you, would you, in a backfield that featured the RB 19 in fantasy points per game last year and RJ Harvey, would they come out on top? Because Bucky Irving was the RB 19 in fantasy points per game last year. Breece Hall was the RB 17 in fantasy points per game last year. Aaron Jones was the RB 20 in fantasy points. If any of those guys were in the backfield with RJ Harvey, would we be drafting him in the 60s? And to me, the answer is no. And again, you can't really compare that because it's all different situations and stuff. All I'm saying is that why would I take Harvey in the 5th, 6th round when I can do the Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears thing? I would rather just draft the cheaper option.
Yeah. No, and for me, it's just the cheaper option, like, of the running backs going in this range. Like, Does RJ Harvey have a similar appeal to, like, if everything works out, could he be James Cook? I think he could be James Cook. We
Yeah.
both comped him to James Cook. That is in the range of outcomes. But why would I pay for maybe James Cook as a 6th-round pick or a 5th-round pick, which is what 62 overall would be, when I can get a much better comparable prospect with higher draft capital cheaper, as we'll talk about in a second.
Not to mention actual James Cook is only like a 1-round difference.
That's a good point too. Yeah, like I'm looking at it, like realistically, like we both had in his profile a 2 grade as a pass blocker, 11.5 and 12 grade as a receiver. It's like people are like, oh yeah, he's going to catch a boatload of passes because look at Denver's receiving core. It's like you got to be a good enough running back as a receiver to command those targets out of the backfield.
Yeah, no, he's an interesting one for sure. I'll see where the price settles in home leagues, but on underdog specifically, I think he's still overvalued. But let's talk about TreVeyon Henderson, and a large reason why I'm not drafting RJ Harvey is because both Henderson and Judkins.
This makes no sense.
Yeah, this just doesn't make any sense to me because they were both better prospects, and the backfield situations are now muddy for RJ Harvey. TreVeyon Henderson is projected for 699.5 rushing yards, 4.5 rushing touchdowns. Here's some of the quotes that are coming out about Henderson right now, which kind of give me a little bit of pause from like a season-long perspective. In best ball, again, late season upside, post-bye rookie bump. That's what we're playing for. From a redraft season-long perspective, hearing it's still unknown whether Henderson can be a true bell cow. That's a quote from one of the beat reporters. He needs to develop as a runner. That's a quote from one of the coaching staff members. I don't know if this dude will ever command, at least not this year, 200 plus carries with Ramondre in the backfield. Because even though Ramondre tried like hell to get replaced by Antonio Gibson last year and couldn't do it because Gibson wasn't good, I still think that Henderson is just too small, too injury prone based on what he's done in his Ohio State career to just take over a 350 touch workload here.
I don't think he has to, though. Let me ask you this. What would you say is like a comparable range? Let's just say I'll give you a scenario. Rookie running back, space back, good as a receiver profile coming out of college. 181 carries, 803 rushing yards at 4.4 per pop. This is about like a fair projection, you would say, for Henderson, right? Give or take. 54 targets, 36 receptions, 297 receiving yards and a touchdown. You would say that's probably like a lesser projection than you would expect for Henderson.
Yeah, I think Henderson should threaten, I would say, 70 to 90 targets.
Okay. The stat line I just read out is rookie year Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who played 13 games, by the way. So when we're pointing it out, it's like if you get him 180 carries and he has more than 50 targets, like Helaire was the RB22 on the season, missing 4 games, and he was objectively an inferior talent. So it's like the upside here. It's like, yeah, he's a smaller back. Maybe, Ramondre Harris. Wow, that's a funny comp. Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a pest early on, but it's like, guess what? If he's getting the receiving work, if he's explosive enough to take a couple carries to the house, it won't matter. And realistically, I mean, we saw in this same offense led by Josh McDaniels, a running back go for over 100 targets. Like we've seen that before. We saw James White get over 100 targets. Like the upside for Henderson, even if it's only 15 carries per game, like if he gets 6-7 targets per game, it's RB1 in fantasy.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be this efficient because this is like absurd efficiency. But I do think if Josh McDaniels was smart, which I actually think as an offensive coordinator he is, you would get somewhere along the vicinity of rookie, or not rookie, but Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift caliber usage out of TreVeyon Henderson. And one guy that I'd like to blast from the past here, in 2015, Josh McDaniels saw Dion Lewis when healthy at 17.2 fantasy points per game. I could see a Dion Lewis caliber season out of TreVeyon Henderson, no problem here. And you and I can wax poetic about Drake May all we want here. Like we think this offense will take a step. I mean, the Patriots, I saw Connor Allen tweeted this out. The Vegas projections of how many games you're favored in, the Patriots are like a +6 from last year. How many games they were favored in to how many games they're favored in now.
I know their win total is at 8.5 right now.
Yeah, and part of that is young quarterback going into his second year. Another part of that is better coaching staff. Another part of that is they needed some players, like they drafted
offensive line.
They added pieces on defense and stuff. Like the team in general should be better. TreVeyon Henderson as a prospect, you can see some of the comps here. Like He's not going to be rookie year Alvin Kamara, and if he is, that would be a smash. But rookie year DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Walker, Dalvin Cook, like that's in the range of outcomes based on his prospect profile, like based on how good of a prospect he is. His best comparable player, legitimately, closest grade, closest draft capital is DeAndre Swift and Dalvin Cook. Those are his closest draft capital and grade comparisons.
So I actually did this on a TikTok recently, and it's funny that Quinshon Judkins will be one of the next guys we talk about. We'll mention it with him as well because both him and Henderson actually filled into this bucket in the prospect model. Again, maybe you've tinkered with it since then, but at the time when I saw it, it was Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Brooks, Nick Chubb, and those two Ohio State running backs kind of all in the same kind of prospect bucket in terms of players that are drafted in the top 40 with similar prospect grades. And when you're looking at that, you average it out. I mean, realistically, all but Derrick Henry of the non-Jonathan Brooks coming off an ACL tear, tearing it again the first game back level season. RB13, RB13, RB21, RB19, and then for Nick Chubb, obviously, across the year, RB25, when he took the full workload, RB12 in points per game. So it's like you're drafting that profile as the RB21. There's just so much meat on the bone for him to hit in multiple ways. If he's a very efficient runner, what if he's takes the Kenneth Walker path?
Yeah.
More than likely, it's probably going to be the DeAndre Swift path.
Swift is such an it's so easy to see how he's Swift. Exactly. Yeah. Like
that was RB19
when he plays.
And that was RB19, and I would argue that he has a higher rushing upside than Swift.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and like the big plays even too. Like he runs like 4 threes in terms of in-game speed and shit. So yeah,
it's exciting.
He's an exciting player, man. And yeah, RB15 in points per game, DeAndre Swift was as a rookie.
Yeah.
RB15 in points per game, which is ahead of where TreVeyon Henderson goes in ADP right now. And Swift only caught 46 balls his rookie season, which I do think Henderson could catch more than that. So Henderson at cost, I'm right there. I'm definitely taking him. I think he fits certain builds too. Like you take one running back early, hammer out wide receivers, take Henderson as your RB2, backfill with a Pacheco, a Swift, somebody who's getting an early season workload. It works out very beautifully for how you address a TreVeyon Henderson onto your fantasy roster. So I'm definitely in on him. And dynasty wise, we obviously know what he brings to the table long term with Drake May. But even on a redraft perspective, Drake May week 1 to 5 is probably worse than Drake May week 10 to 17.
And guess what? The way that the offense will be structured, it's not like Drake May is a player that is just going to, eat a bunch of sacks. Drake May is going to create for himself. Drake May is going to get out of structure. Guess what? If TreVeyon Henderson's in the flat and he is able to adjust his route because Drake May's bailing out of the pocket, like Henderson is not even just the type of running back that will only take screens, will only take flat routes. TreVeyon Henderson is very much capable of creating on the fly.
Yeah, and I'm not going to call him Jahmyr Gibbs because people have. He's not as good of a prospect as Jahmyr Gibbs.
He's not that.
But he can be used as a receiver the way that Jahmyr Gibbs is. And McDaniels, as we've literally made reference to a couple times already, could do that with him and use him very creatively. So even if Henderson, 180 carries, 100 targets, that would be primo for what he could do from a PPR perspective.
I mean, we saw it in Ohio State, like those second reaction type of situations where guess what? Will Howard, makes a guy miss in the pocket, rolls out a little bit. It's like, how many times you see Henderson catching passes like 15 yards down the field?
Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting with how they use him. Let's talk about Kaleb Johnson because this is a guy more so polarized, kind of like Hampton. We are a little bit more polarized on. You're a little bit higher on Kaleb Johnson, and it kind of stems from the fact with both Hampton and Johnson that you were higher pre-draft on both players and like the prospect profile a little bit more pre-draft with both players. But 849.5 rushing yards is a nice total for Kaleb Johnson. Yeah, it's pretty close to what Hampton's is, like you said. Beat reporters, when he was drafted and recently, have listed him and Jaylen Warren as like co-starters. Arthur Smith also called him an excellent scheme fit, which of course we already knew that. Like we talked about it pre-draft that he was a great scheme fit, but still, it's good to hear that. The team should run the ball well because Arthur Smith's a great play caller, especially as a rushing play caller. They have a good blocking scheme. The offensive line was really young, had a lot of moving parts. Maybe some continuity on that regard makes it a little bit better. And DK Metcalf's addition is huge for Kaleb Johnson and the run game in general because DK Metcalf opens up a lot over the middle of the field in the box for what any running back is capable of doing, because DK Metcalf, people are scared shitless of a 70-yard touchdown from DK Metcalf.
He's the exact receiver you want on your team when you're planning on running the hell out of the football, because nothing is scarier for a defense than a team you know is going to run the ball 20 times a game and then will randomly hit you with a PA shot to a 6'4", 4.3 speed receiver. That's especially with Aaron Rodgers leading that.
Yeah, and Rodgers can still throw a nice deep ball. He threw a nice deep ball last year. The one question here is, it's very similar to Hampton. How much is Jaylen Warren involved? Because Jaylen Warren has been 4.9, 5.1, and 4.3 yards per carry every year of his career. So he's an efficient, by all standards, good running back in the NFL. But he's never commanded more than 149 carries in a season. But he did have 210 touches in 2023 because he actually had 61 receptions that year, which I didn't think he caught that many balls. But the most likely scenario is that Kaleb Johnson's the early down back, right? He inherits what Najee Harris left behind. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to have 300 touches like Najee Harris had last year, but the question is, can Kaleb Johnson be better than what Najee Harris did? Get the same kind of carry workload, but be more efficient in the red zone. And my real hesitancy there is that I honestly just kind of like other running back projections similar to Kaleb Johnson, but I do understand the ceiling is there, that if he's a great running back, he'll, have a nice rookie season. And I do think the Steelers offense can be a functional, top 15, top 20 unit in the league.
Hear me out. You mentioned this guy before, and I think it's hilarious. Again, I'm not implying that he's going to be this level of talent when I'm talking about Kaleb Johnson. But it is hilarious when you contextualize that you talked about TreVeyon Henderson to Dion Lewis before. What if this is similar to the 2018 Titans, where Kaleb Johnson's in that Derrick Henry role and Dion Lewis is Jaylen Warren? Dion Lewis in 2018, that season, 67 targets, 155 carries. That would be more than anything Jaylen Warren's done in his career. Now, obviously, it's like Derrick Henry that season, 4.93 yards per carry. I don't think Kaleb Johnson's going to average 4.93 yards per carry. But Derrick Henry only had 233 opportunities, and that was good enough to be the RB 15 in 16 games. So when we're looking at it for Kaleb Johnson, it's like he doesn't have to get a lot of receiving work if he's going to be close to 240, 230 carries. And realistically, with Rodgers there, I feel comfortable projecting him to be that goal line running back. You mentioned Najee Harris was 11th in the NFL in goal line carries last year, and he only punched in 6 touchdowns. It makes me think, if the Steelers were willing to give Najee Harris that workload and he wasn't punching in the touchdowns, what the hell are they going to give Kaleb Johnson if he is punching in the touchdowns?
Yeah, I mean, the answer for both Kaleb Johnson and Omarion Hampton is the talent will win out. If Kaleb Johnson's a beast, he'll take over this backfield. If Omarion Hampton's a beast, he will take over that backfield. I have questions about both players, being that Hampton and Johnson, a little, Johnson specifically, 1 year production, little bit of a, blown open, wide open rushing lanes at Iowa. Like every play of Kaleb Johnson's tape was just an absolutely perfectly blocked run. So I do worry about the Steelers offensive line necessarily giving him that great of holes to work with. And Kaleb Johnson himself, not an exceptional athlete, not going to, I tend to think he'll be a virtual 0 on third down as a rookie, a rookie specifically. Maybe he develops more later in his career, but I tend to think it will be all Jaylen Warren on third down.
So question, let me ask you another Arthur Smith comp of a team, because this is going to be funny. I mentioned the 2018 Titans. Let's go back over to the 2022 Falcons, where we had Cordero Patterson getting 175 opportunities in 13 games. And yet Tyler Algier, a day 3 running back, round 5 running back as a rookie, 210 carries, 227 opportunities, and over 1,000 rushing yards, and only on 3 touchdowns. Like, I think it's almost a lock that Kaleb Johnson scores over 3 touchdowns. CPAT had 8 that year, by the way. Yeah,
CPAT had a really good year that year. So, I mean, again, there's opportunities. My one hesitancy here is I'm talking about the 71st overall player in ADP. To me, that's just a smidge high. I have him at like 77, 78. And among running backs, I do prefer some of the like Isaiah Pacheco, DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson types, because the way I look at it is this. Kaleb Johnson is going to be probably quite similar to Brian Robinson and what kind of role he plays and how he gets there and stuff. But Brian Robinson plays in a better offense. And I've seen him, be a productive NFL running back already. Isaiah Pacheco, same thing, similar roles, similar ways that they win. I just think Kaleb Johnson is behind those guys for me, but among overall players, I'm pretty decently in line with ADP.
We can move on to the next player. Who are we on now?
Judkins.
That'd be cool. I mean, this is a very easy case.
Judkins is I'm going to save people some time here. Quinshon Judkins is the single best value on the board at running back, in my opinion. I have Quinshon Judkins ranked at 47th overall. He goes 73.5. And here's why I think he's a huge value. And spoiler alert, at the end of this video, we're going to make a season-long pick'em, and 649.5 rushing yards is ridiculously low in my opinion, and I will be taking the higher on that. GM Andrew Berry called Quinshon Judkins a bell cow when they drafted him. Also, knowing what I know about Quinshon Judkins from a dynasty lens, he has been one of the best college football running backs all 3 years of his career. He was an exceptional athlete. He was drafted with a top 40 NFL draft pick to a team that last year aside has traditionally been very good running the football. And last year aside, when they were 30th ranked offensive line, 4.1 yards per carry from the Browns running backs, which ranked, I believe, 7th lowest among teams. This is a running back and a team that is a match made in heaven. The thing that they couldn't do last year was move the chains consistently with the run. And that is what Quinshon Judkins does. The thing that they also couldn't do last year was score in the red zone with the run. And I think that Judkins can solve a lot of those problems.
Yeah, we agree on Quinshon Judkins. I mean, to get this type of size, this type of explosiveness, this type of immediate workload appeal, people will have their Browns offensive concerns. I literally made a TikTok on it. Guess what? If this guy's the prospect profile we think he is, I talked about the comps with TreVeyon Henderson. The worst on that list was Nick Chubb, who was the RB25 in points per game his rookie year. Guess where Quinshon Judkins is being drafted? And that's the worst of the list, by the way.
Yeah, look at the comps on the screen right now. The guys that went at the top of the second round, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Zach Charbonnet, J.K. Dobbins. Charbonnet and Dobbins had backfield competition when they got in there. Derrick Henry, backfield competition when he got in there. Chubb had some backfield competition in there, but he won the job out. There is nobody that scares me in this Browns backfield. I mean, Dylan Sampson, of course. I like him late round shot. We'll talk about him later in this video. But Jerome Ford? Like, really? Jerome Ford? That's what we're scared of right now? I get that the Browns offense could not be very good. I tend to think it'll be about a below average offense rather than like the dead last ranked offense that Quinshon Judkins would probably need to be playing on for his ADP not to pay off. But I do think the reason they were bad last year, and by the way, they were one of the worst 2 offenses in the NFL already, so there's pretty much nowhere to go but up, is because they could not run the football. And Judkins, as a great prospect, coming in, exceptional athlete, high draft capital, even what Sampson provides them as a rushing offense as well. This is just going to be a decent, maybe you don't want to watch them Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m., but I think they're going to be a functional offense personally. Yeah. Even whoever starts at quarterback, I think they're going to be able to rely on Judkins. Yeah,
and outside of Jeanty, I think all these running backs we've talked about, like there is someone there that you can envision taking touches. For obviously Judkins, it is Dylan Sampson. We mentioned Jaylen Warren for Kaleb Johnson, obviously Ramondre for TreVeyon Henderson, and Najee Harris for Omarion Hampton. But I will say, out of all the options, like how would you rank your level of scare in the backfield for that main running back? I would say
Judkins has the least amount of competition other than Jeanty.
Yeah, I think I'm getting there. It's close for me. Again, I think ultimately all of them can end up being the main number 1 running back on their team. I just was higher on Sampson, I guess, than you were.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't think Sampson's a good pick where he's going. I
love Judkins too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I still draft a shit ton of Sampson in case I'm wrong about that take, but I thought Sampson as a 20-year-old, 1-year starter at Tennessee, which is a very challenging transition to the NFL as we saw with Jalen Wright last year. I don't think Sampson's going to blow the world up and be the starting running back here. Let's just put it that way. I think
he's not going to overtake Judkins.
Change of pace, situational usage, maybe some special teams, maybe some third down usage. I think Judkins has a chance legitimately to have 300 touches this year. And if he does, he's going to be an RB1 in fantasy, regardless of how bad the Cleveland Browns offense is.
Yeah, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I also have Judkins ranked above consensus. I actually currently have Judkins as my 49th ranked player, 17th ranked running back. So expert consensus on the site, 56 overall. You have him at 47, so just a couple spots ahead of me. And shout out Zach, actually, for kind of needling between us. You have him at 47, Zach at 48. I have him at 49. We're the only 3 that actually have him in our top 50s.
Yeah, and by the way, his ADP is 74. So like ridiculously low. I don't get it. I really don't. Rookie running back, this good of an athlete, this high of a projection for touches. Really, really do not understand why he.
I would take him over James Cook.
I would literally take him over James Cook. Tackles forced number in his final season at Ohio State, he would be a 4th round pick.
I would literally take him over James Cook. I'm not even trolling you.
I wouldn't personally because I like James Cook still, but I do have him 1 spot behind James Cook.
And there it goes, right? So Judkins, don't be scared about the offense. Trust the workload. Trust the talent. Cam Skattebo is very polarizing because you will have a hive of people that think Cam Skattebo is just going to be a workhorse running back because the production profile will speak for itself. without acknowledging the fact that he slipped to day 3 and he's not the exceptional athlete that will gain that type of workload. For me, the way I've been playing this in redraft, I actually do prefer Tyrone Tracy straight up. I'm curious where you're at because their ADPs right now are almost back to back.
Yeah, I have actually been above market on underdog on both players. But it actually just kind of usually works out for me that in best ball, I usually need touches more than upside at this point in the draft. So I take Tracy because I want the early season appeal. Because I do think Skattebo, as a guy who went to Sacramento for a couple of years and really didn't break out until his like redshirt senior season, I don't think he's going to hit the ground running and be like lead this backfield in touches right away. Like
the play speed as well could be an issue right away. Like
if there's stuff you need to not be thinking if you're not an exceptional athlete, and he is by no means an exceptional athlete. Like he's a bad athlete, legitimately. So he needs to, like Kyron Williams, for example, guy who ran in the 4.7s as a rookie. Was Kyron Williams impressive? No, it took him a year to develop, more of a sense of how the NFL game speed works. Yeah. Mark Ingram
went higher too.
Yeah. Even David Montgomery, it took him a couple of years too. Yeah. Like to me, it's not very likely that Cam Skattebo is just like a league winner, and just dominates the backfield and wins it out, and he's a top 12 running back in fantasy.
I think it's far more likely that is actually Tracy in this backfield.
I think it's probably more likely that neither of them are overly exceptional, and one of them's maybe a back end RB2, and to me that would be Tracy. But I don't know. For me, I actually am not really. I have a decent amount of Skattebo, but I kind of want to get my exposure down on him because I don't really believe that much in the Giants offense either. So I don't really want to be investing a lot into the Giants backfield. And when I do kind of want it to be Tracy because I am usually chasing touches. If I was in one redraft league and Skattebo was a 12th round pick and I was just swinging for upside in a start 7 ESPN league, sure, go ahead.
It's like, to me too,
stash him at the end of your bench.
To me too, I don't view him as a 3-down profile anyways, because I do think either he's not going to get the autonomy of carries or he's not going to get the autonomy of receiving work. And he's tethered to an offense that realistically, even if you're most optimistic, is the 21st best offense in the league.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about the most contentious backfields in the league already, and we went really in depth on the Giants backfield and the Jags, which we're about to talk about as well. So if you want more information on those, obviously go to those videos. But yeah, as of now, I would say I'm kind of out on Cam Skattebo at his underdog price. But again, redraft wise, if he falls and whatnot, I think he's a fine value at that point. Let's talk about Bhayshul Tuten because we're getting a mixed bag buzz wise. I would say generally it's been bearish on Tuten. Needs to improve in pass protection. He's still learning. It's one day at a time. That's the type of stuff we've been hearing from Liam Cohen. And we've also been hearing from beat reporters that they think it'll be Travis Etienne's job at the beginning of the year. And Tank Bigsby's the third wild card in here is that if you look at the metrics, he was better than Etienne last year. He's a young player, still getting better. This backfield could be won outright by any one of these three guys. Legitimately. Any one of these three. Bigsby's the cheapest, who I've been drafting the most of. At times when I have opportunities to, but I actually have been taking swings on all three of them. So the way I look at Tuten is kind of similar to the way I look at Hampton, only it's really baked into his cost at that point. Is he was kind of raw. He is probably going to take.
You know what my comp is?
What's that?
My comp is actually closer to the fact that it feels similar in both ADP and both archetype of player to what Trey Benson bet was last year.
Yeah.
Trey Benson bet, I think, was better because he only had to overcome James Conner. Now, obviously, James Conner had a great season, but going into the year, it's old back, injury issues, never was the most efficient. Then he just randomly stays healthy and has his most efficient year in the NFL. So I'll take the L on that, but I think the process was sound. I think the process is sound on Tuten if you can get him in the 130s. However, when his ADP was in the hundreds, that's when I'm like, okay, there's better workload projections. But realistically, the implied value is why we're striving for these profiles. 205 plus pound size, 4.3 speed, ability to contribute on all three downs, I would say, in terms of an upside perspective. And on top of that, this is an offense that, as much as I like the Cardinals last year, if Tuten does end up getting a 16, 17 plus touch per game workload in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, it's easy to see the upside path. It is just simply the question on where he is from a cerebral perspective, if he can overcome Tank Bigsby and Etienne in the pecking order.
Which, from a dynasty perspective, I love me some Tuten. From a redraft perspective, I kind of want to cool down on my exposure to him. And to be fair, Etienne of the three is the one that I've been drafting the most. I said I've been drafting a lot of Tank Bigsby, but it actually is Etienne that I've drafted the most of. Because part of that too is that if Etienne got dealt, he would probably start for a different
Let me
team.
see what my exposures are at, because I am genuinely curious now. I think Bigsby's definitely my highest owned of the three.
Yeah. And Tuten is weird, man, because Tuten profile is very similar to Devon Achane in some ways, Bucky Irving in some ways, especially when you factor in that Liam Cohen connection. But he does also profile, like you said, to kind of like Trey Benson in some ways, which is that like we kind of knew he wasn't going to have a great rookie season. And I think it is very possible that that's the case with Tuten.
Yeah, so currently my exposures right now, keep in mind, I have to do my second batch of drafts, so I'm sure I'm going to get a ton more Tuten now that he's cheaper. But after the first batch, when the ADP was like in the hundreds and the 110s, 3.6%. So I didn't really get a ton of Tuten. Actually, where I was leaning in this backfield, again, cheaper relative cost at the time because Tuten was drafted first of this bunch. The orders kind of flipped now where ETN's clearly the one drafted highest. I had Bigsby at 16.1. He's still the cheapest of the bunch, and I'm still going to be drafting him where I am. And ETN, when he was at depressed cost, I got 12.5%.
Yeah, I like ETN. Where's his ADP now? His ADP is 99.1.
It was in the 110s, bro.
Yeah, I got him mainly in that range when I was drafting my team. So yeah, this is going to be a challenging backfield no matter what. Tuten is at a point now though where he's basically in handcuff territory anyways, so you can just take the swing on him, and you're taking him around the Charbonnets of the world, around the Ray Davises of the world. Like you're totally fine swinging at that point. But what if he starts, getting camp buzz and creeping up into the 90s and shit? Then we're gonna have to have a different conversation about Tuten. There's plenty of other running backs in this draft class. We got Jaden Blue, DJ Giddens, Jarquez Hunter, Dylan Sampson.
These are the main drafted guys, I would say, on Underdog. And then obviously like the next batch are like the scroll the F down, as we like to refer to them, backs. Taj Brooks, Kyle Monangai, Ja'Cory McCroskey Merritt, Jordan James, Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon. All guys that are like 210, 215 ADP or below that if you wanted to take a swing on in the 18th round, I think it's reasonable. But I would say like Blue, Giddens, Hunter, Sampson, say you're in a 15 round, redraft home league, these guys may be worth, you want to spend your 14th or 15th round for a handcuff with some upside, that type of investment. But if they creep up to the 11th, the 12th round, like for example, Jaden Blue is the highest of this bunch, RB47. He goes really close to Tuten right now. And to me, that's just too expensive for him.
Yeah, no, for sure. Of this group of four, Blue, Giddens, Hunter, Sampson, and we should probably preface here, Blue of the Cowboys, Giddens of the Colts, Hunter of the Rams, and Sampson of the Browns. All of these guys, I believe, were 4th and 5th round picks, respectively. Yep. Some of them 4th, some of them 5th. Of all of them, who's the one that you find yourself gravitating to the most? For me, it's Giddens, because Giddens was the highest rated in the prospect model pre-draft and post-draft, just given how good of a prospect he was. And it's very clear what he is to me. I get that maybe Blue could start without an injury to his backfield. Jarquez Hunter maybe carves out a role. Dylan Sampson maybe carves out a role. It's pretty cut and dry, straightforward to me that Giddens will be Jonathan Taylor's handcuff.
Exactly. And I've been drafting him the most. Part of it, obviously, Underdog, Week 17 correlation, Jaguars, I'm drafting a ton of them. They play the Colts. That's part of the factor. But the other factor is, like, I've talked about the fact that Jonathan Taylor is very inconsistent in terms of his playing time per year. And on top of that, we know he's not going to have a 3-down profile. If Giddens can get some 3rd down work, while also having the implied upside attached to Shane Steichen, attached to an offense that we think is only going to improve with a more steady quarterback situation, whether that's Anthony Richardson playing better, whether that's Daniel Jones starting this year, who we know is at worst going to give you top 25 quarterback play. Like, I don't think this offense bottoms out if Daniel Jones is the starter, basically is what I'm saying. And on top of that, if Anthony Richardson is the starter, that means he's just simply playing well. Otherwise, he would get benched. So I feel very comfortable with the offensive projection. And I think Giddens is the type of 3-down profile that really interests me. Could he be a Kenyon Drake style running back where once he clicks mentally, you get the efficiency? Yeah, you're going to get some mental lapses every now and then, but the efficiency in the receiving work's going to trump it. I think that's in the range of outcomes in terms of the upside if Taylor were to miss time. I mean, you remember Cardinals, Kenyon Drake, people were drafting in the 2nd round.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, this group of guys is pretty interesting. Again, I think Hunter is generally probably a handcuff, most likely, especially because I do think Kyron will get extended. Sampson, we kind of already talked about with Judkins, so we don't really need to talk about him. It's very clear. You draft him because you think he has a role. Maybe he has some standalone role and then some upside if Judkins were to get hurt. Jaden Blue, I just want to get it on the record that he was a 3rd down back in college. He never started. And
I think that's all he is in the
Longhorn
NFL
starting running back CJ Baxter tore his ACL before the year. So if he was going to start, it would have been this year. And could TreVeyon Wisner and him split the backfield and all this type of stuff. So I think people are going, who's this year's Bucky Irving, and thinking it's Jaden Blue. And that's why his ADP is what it is.
And like, I understand what people are thinking. Oh, well, the Cowboys are going to score a lot of points. They're not going to have completely zero rushing work. Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders are absolute fucking dust. Like, I get how people have come to that. You want to take the swing on the unknown with the rookie because you know the two veterans on the team absolutely fucking suck at football. Let's be realistic here. However, Jaden Blue has not shown the ability, like you said, to handle that workload. If he wasn't able to do it in college, it's like, yeah, guess what? Maybe you don't think the most of Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. They're NFL running backs. If he wasn't going to do it over Trey Weiser, it's like, Trey Weiser's what, a day 3 prospect next year?
Yeah, and like you go, oh, what about Bucky Irving and Kyron Williams and like underside, like Jahmyr Gibbs? They were all very clearly starting running backs in college.
Yeah. No, exactly. So again, I think it's fine if you like Blue. I think he's going to have like a third down profile. He's probably going to get some targets, which, by the way, I don't even think it's a given. He's going to have the stranglehold of the third down work because Javonte Williams was brought into pass protect. Like, I hope people realize Javonte Williams will be the team's third down back right off the bat because the Cowboys are going to be a top 3 team in neutral pass rate, and they're going to get the guy on the field that knows how to protect the fucking quarterback.
Yeah, it disgusts me to say that I actually prefer the 2 dusty veterans, whether it's you think Javonte can bounce back. I don't really love Javonte, but I actually just like taking the swing on Miles Sanders because he's so cheap.
The thesis for Javonte is he's going to probably catch 4 checkdowns a game in the first 5 weeks of the year.
Yeah, no, none of these guys are very interesting, but Blue is actually the least interesting of the 3 options given their price tags. Who's your favorite? Scroll the F down. We're not going to talk about all these guys, but Taj Brooks of the Bengals, Kyle Menengai of the Bears, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt of the Commanders, Jordan James of the 49ers, Devin Neal of the New Orleans Saints, Ollie Gordon of the Miami Dolphins. We also have Damian Martinez of the Seattle Seahawks, Woody Marks of the Houston Texans, Brashard Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs, Trevor Etienne even of the Carolina Panthers, Phil Maffa of the Cowboys. Like, does anybody, all of those guys, that every single person I just mentioned was a 5th to 7th round running back, except for Woody Marks, I believe was a 4th round pick. And I think maybe Jordan James might've been a 4th round pick too. I can't remember exactly,
but
he
might have been a 6th.
Yeah. I think he was a 6th round pick too. Does anybody tickle your fancy there? Is anyone like, okay, I'm taking swings in the 18th round?
Tickle my fancy. So do I think a guy that can have an immediate role on his team? I think Brashard Smith can actually be the third down back, assume some of that Samaje Perine role that was left behind. In terms of just pure upside, though, it's hard not to look at the fact that with how big of a workload Chase Brown got down the stretch, with the fact that Zach Moss literally suffered a career-threatening neck injury. They didn't know if he was going to retire or not. It looked like he was about to. Got his salary cut significantly just to remain a Bengal. Like, to me, it doesn't sound like Zach Moss is a big major part of their plans. And the fact of the matter is, you either believe Chase Brown is going to be a top 3 to 5 running back in fantasy, or you are drafting Taj Brooks at the end of your underdog fantasy drafts. Because quite simply to me, Taj Brooks has size. Yeah, sure. Is he going to be a league winner? No. Could he be a guy that in a 4-week stretch can give you what Gus Edwards did for the Chargers last year? Yes. So to me, it's like, if I'm getting that in the 18th round, sure. I don't think Taj Brooks is going to be like, oh, this year's Elijah Mitchell out of the woodworks wins me my league. I don't think he has that efficiency upside. But if he's getting 4 goal line carries per game on a Bengals offense that's averaging 32 points per game, yeah, he can get there if Chase Brown missed time. Absolutely.
Yeah, 4 goal line carries a game would be insane. But yeah,
he could though with how the Bengals are operating.
Yeah, no, he definitely could. Brooks, I haven't been drafting a ton of. The guy that I've drafted the most here is Devin Neal. For sure. And it's not because I think the Saints are good. It's because I thought Devin Neal was a good prospect, and I'm not
Kamara's a little washed
Kamara at all. I actually have Kamara ranked quite highly. It's just that Kamara's 30 years old. Like if Kamara goes down with an injury or something, like Devin Neal, like Kendre Miller is certifiable trash. Like Devin Neal would probably, like, trying to think of a comparable, like Dameon Pierce. Like, would he be as good as Dameon Pierce was as a rookie if he got a workload for the Saints?
I could see that.
The second pick of the draft that year.
I remember when I was doing my prospect notes on Devin Neal, I wrote, jack of all trades, master of none. It's like, sometimes that's unfortunate because you just don't get the opportunity. But because he's just so good, so solid in so many aspects of playing the position, they've needed somebody to take fucking work off of Kamara. Like, I think personally, it's like, does Devin Neal, like Taj Brooks, have the highest upside if Kamara were to miss time? he's probably not going to be a top 5, top 8 running back in
Be
points per
like
game.
Brian Robinson in terms of like
which he'll
PPR
take.
point per game production, probably.
I mean, fuck, would it all be shocked if the Robinson Eckler duo looks similar to the Neal Kamara duo this year? Like,
No,
I
it
think
wouldn't be
Eckler
like
and
on
Kamara
a
are
way
similar
worse
talents.
offense, but yeah.
But like the thing is, like, Eckler was quietly really efficient last year. Maybe this is just a tangent that I've been actually drafting a decent bit of Eckler. I mean, we're talking about Ja'Cory Cross-Game-Merritt in this section, so I may as well mention. People think Eckler is dust. I think if he didn't suffer concussions last year, Eckler would have been one of the best picks in the draft range he was going. He was so efficient on Washington.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Little side tangent, but fuck.
Side tangent for sure. My thought process is just this. I don't really give a shit about his standalone role, Devin Neal's. Maybe he has one, maybe he doesn't. Let's say he does. It's a minor, gives you 2 to 3 spike weeks when Alvin Kamara is healthy, standalone role because he has 80 yards and a touchdown twice or something in the first 10 weeks of the season. Devin Neal could legitimately be a Dameon Pierce, Tyler Algier rookie season if Kamara were to go down with an injury. And that's why I'm interested, because he's literally an 18th round pick. And in redraft home leagues, he'd be like waiver wire speed dial. He wouldn't even be drafted.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess you mentioned, Jordan James obviously is always going to be interesting because guess what? If McCaffrey were to go down again, is Garendo going to be an 80+ opportunity share back? Probably not. Even if Garendo would be the lead back, I'm sure Jordan James could work into the equation. And funny enough, I don't necessarily think there's much of a tangible difference in stylistic runner between Jordan James and Jordan Mason. Like, they're both stocky guys. They're both about, 5'8", 5'9", right? But like, it's funny because we saw how good Jordan Mason was. It's like Jordan Mason kind of does a lot of those similar things, which is probably why they drafted him.
Yeah, no, we don't have to talk about these guys. Kyle Menengai beat out Quinshon Johnson, and then we'll talk. Ollie Gordon, I don't think he'll beat out Jalen Wright personally as the RB2 on that team. Damian Martinez got a long way to go up the depth chart, but I do think he's good. I mean, waiver wire speed dial, though. You probably don't want to be drafting him in an 18-round draft. And then, like you said, Brashard Smith, maybe he's interesting. Trevor Etienne, maybe he's interesting. I tend to think that those guys will be like special teamers, to be honest, but we'll see.
Guess what? Hey, maybe there's a possibility that, Maffa, because of his shoulder injury last year, wasn't as efficient, and he goes out there in training camp and he's looking efficient in the preseason, and he goes from starting with the third string to he's playing in the second quarter. Like,
dude, if Phil Maffa starts for the Cowboys in week 1, you guys are in trouble. But
let's just say, like, he would be the type where, like, follow the tea leaves. If he starts getting some positive news, maybe you want to throw an 18th round pick at him just for fun. Because guess what? Nobody's appealing in that backfield.
No, nobody is appealing in that backfield is an understatement for sure. But yeah, rookie running backs and redraft. We broke it down. If you guys enjoyed it, leave a like. We're going to do wide receivers too. We probably won't do quarterbacks and tight ends because there's like one relevant quarterback in Cam Ward and like 2 relevant tight ends in Loveland and Warren. Again, we could talk about them, but it's probably not worth a whole video for it. But we will talk about the receiver class, how they project from a redraft perspective. We weren't talking dynasty specific in this video, but you definitely can apply some of this to dynasty and maybe adjust your takes based on, what you think of the year 1 projection and how you think of the long-term projection and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, this was just redraft stuff, help you guys in season long, help you guys in best ball. And of course, if you do want to draft some best ball teams, head on over to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code FSE when you sign up. You'll get up to $1,000 in bonus funds on the site to play with. And you can enter some of these drafts and start taking some of these values, specifically Quinshon Judkins, as we talked about, an absolute beast, going where he's going. Danny, shall we build out a little pick'em entry at the end of this here? Okay, I already made it clear which one I'm going after. That'll be Quinshon Judkins rushing yards, so we can move on to yours, and then we'll maybe tag team the last.
Yeah, and for my pick, I mean, I mentioned the fact that I'm looking at the situation, I'm looking at the rushing tendencies. Give me the higher on the rushing touchdowns for Omarion Hampton. Again, I talked about the fact that I thought Najee Harris, despite the 11th overall goal line carry workload last year, was one of the most inefficient rushers in that carry area. And I do think if Omarion Hampton is going out there punching touchdowns in early in the season, he can have autonomy in that role. So to me, 6.5 rushing touchdowns for a back that I think has Jonathan Taylor-esque upside down the stretch. Very, very good number to get it at.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And which one do we want to tag team here? We want to go Jeanty? Do we want to go? Harvey doesn't have a whole lot of stuff listed here. It's just like rushing games. So, he going under on him or lower on him would have naturally made some sense. We want to go Henderson maybe as the one that we agree on?
Hear me out. A number that I really like. 3.5 100+ yard rushing games from Jeanty this year. I feel
Yeah.
like there's going to have carries where he has like 28 carries, 29
Yeah,
carries in the
that's a
game.
good one. Let's roll with that one. Okay, we'll get this one sent over, and if you guys want to tail this, you can obviously do that. And yeah, we'll see how this one plays out throughout these like second year breakouts and rookie breakouts and stuff. We'll probably be building some season long pickems, and yeah, these are really fun to do. You can get some skin in the game right now. Head on over to Underdog, and of course, you can draft best ball teams. Best Ball Mania 6 going live fast and furious right now, and we are getting right into crunch time. Like, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and of course, make sure to be checking out all the other content that we got coming up, because it is going to be a very, very fun redraft, season long, Dynasty summer. Quick announcement too, we're going to be probably moving live streams to more evening stuff because we have so much content planned that we don't want to interrupt that, and it'll just mean that we're doing two things at once. We'll be doing live streams for team reviews and best ball drafts on the same day that we drop regular, pre-recorded videos. So it just means more for you guys, and probably more people joining us in the evening when they're not at work and whatnot. So appreciate you guys for watching. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon.